Hello friends, this is Salar and you're watching Smart Code. So now I'm back with another interesting tutorial on JavaScript. In this tutorial, you will learn how to program to-do list with the help of JavaScript. And I hope you know how this application gonna work. You will just provide a to-do in this text box like homework, and then you will click on add new button. So your to-do is now added to the list, right? And you can provide as many to-dos you want. There is no limitation. So let's put some more to-dos. Right, so every to-do also has a delete button, and just by clicking on it, your to-do is gone. And we're also controlling this text box. You can't leave this text box empty. If you leave it empty and click on the add new, a message is shown on the screen and it says, please provide a to-do, right? So it's a very simple application and it doesn't require so much HTML. Most of the HTML is coming from JavaScript. And in the JavaScript, you will learn and work with many DOM functions and properties. So let's start developing this application. We will first prepare HTML, then we will write some basic CSS, and finally, we will program JavaScript. In my VS Code, I have already created 3 files, one for HTML, one for CSS, and one for JavaScript. So we will start by including CSS and JS file to HTML document. So both the files are now included, and now we will prepare HTML document. Just take a wrapper for entire program. Let's now define program heading. And so now after the heading, we will define another section and I call it input area. This input area section consists of a text box and a button. If you look in the browser, it will look something like this at this stage. Now the final section of HTML or this application is interesting. And here I will code an unordered list without any list item, right? So no list item in the list because every list item represents a to-do based on the text you provide in the text box. So we will build a list item based on the text you provide in the text box in the JavaScript, and then we will insert list item into the unordered list dynamically. This is how the whole concept looks like, right? So let me first code an unordered list and then we will talk more about it. Let's take a div and call it to do area, and inside the div I will code an unordered list. Right, so we have an empty unordered list, and like I said, list items are generated and inserted into the unordered list by JavaScript. But at this moment we need to write a single list item, and this is because of the CSS. We need CSS for the list items, and that's why we need to code a single list item here. And once our CSS is ready, we will remove the list item. So let's code a single list item here. So this is how a single to-do item looks like. It's just a list item with a delete option, right? When you look in the browser, it will look something like this. So no more HTML is needed. Our HTML is ready. Let's now jump into the CSS file and apply some CSS. In the universal selector, we will reset margin and padding, and we set box sizing to border box. Now we will place the entire to-do wrapper to the center of the page. So let's target the body and apply flex to it. And now we will target the to-do wrapper and will apply some properties like width, background color, and padding. And I think in the body, we can even put text color property, right? And now we will target the heading and we'll increase its size and put it to the center of the container, and we'll apply some bottom margin. So now we are going to style this input area, which consists of a button and a text box. And now finally, we will style this list item, right? And in the last, we will target the delete option and give it some styles. So this is our final version, right? And here you see we styled the list item. We have CSS for the list item. So now we don't need this one in the HTML. And so here is the list item, which is not needed anymore. So let's now start the final round. And in the final round, we will write JavaScript. And now in the JavaScript, we only need two functions. A function for adding to-dos and another function for removing to-dos, right? And we will code them one by one. So let's start with the add to do function. So this function is going to add to-dos in the list. Now the question is when it is called, and you get the answer when you look at the interface. The add to-do function is only called when someone may click on this button. And that means we need to give a click event to this button. And with every click, add to do function is called by this button. So now in JavaScript, we will first get button element in the program. And we will get it in the program using its ID, right? So the add btn is the ID of the button element, and you can double check it in the HTML. And here you see, right? Now the second step should be listen for the click event on the button and then call the function add to do. And for that we use add event listener. So let's code it. So this part is not done. Whenever you make a click, add to do function is called. So let's now program add to do function. And now in the add to do function, we will first get the user input. User provides input in this text box. And the text box has an ID to do text, which we are going to use in the JavaScript to get the user input. So let's get the user input in the program. So now we have user input in the program. Now another thing that we need in this function is this unordered list, because we need to add list items using JavaScript. So we need a reference to that list so that we can easily append it with new list items in the JavaScript. So in the JavaScript file, we can get the UL with the help of query selector method. So now we have necessary things in the function, and it's now time to create a list item based on user input. And when the list item is created, we will insert it into the list. right? So let's get it done. And we will start by validating the user input. So if the user input is empty, you will see this message, and we will program the rest of the things here. So we will first create a list item element. Let's call it to do. So this line of code will create an empty list item tag like this. Okay, so the list item is created, but it is empty, and the text in the list item gonna exactly be like this, right? And we will do that in the JavaScript. So in the JavaScript file, we will write so we are inserting this text into the li tag, right? And if you look closer, there is no difference between this one and that we have in the HTML. The only difference one can see is the user input, which is coming from the text box. So the list item based on the user input is now ready, and now we just need to insert the list item into the unordered list. And so our add to do function is almost completed. So let's now append the unordered list. So here we are appending another list with newly created list item. And that's it. Our add to do function is now ready. Let's check it out in the browser. So let's now provide to-dos, and I hope it will work. Learn JS, yes. Learn CSS, yes. Learn HTML, yes. And here you see, it's wonderful. So our application is working fine, and right here we can add two more functions just in order to improve the user experience. We can empty the text box when the job is added, and then we can put cursor in the text box. So it will improve user experience, and our application will become more user friendly. So when the to do is added, we will first empty the text box. And now we will put cursor in the text box. Right, so now you can check the application again. It now has improved user experience. And now the remove function. So for removing to-dos, we will apply a different approach. So let me first give you the basic idea what we are going to do here. Now in the HTML, we have this unordered list where we are adding list items. And so in order to remove list items from the list, we will first make this entire list clickable. That means we will apply a click event to the unordered list. And when the click event is fired over the unordered list, we will try to get this div element in the JavaScript using event object. And once we have this div element in the JavaScript, we can easily remove its parent element, which is the ally tag. Right? So it will make more sense when we code in the JavaScript step by step. And here I think I missed something. We need to set an ID to the another list. Let's call it to the list. And in the JavaScript, we will first get the entire list using the get element by ID method. Let's call it to do list click. So we have the entire list, and now we will listen for the click events on the list, and at the same time we will call a function named remove to do. Right, so the remove to do is a user defined function which we are going to code now, and in our remove to do function we will pass event object as parameter. Event object is incredibly useful thing, and you will see it in just a second. So let me first code the definition of the function. Then we will talk more about it. And here we will pass event object as parameter. Right, so this e parameter is called event object. So it's an object to this click event, and event object passes automatically to the function when you perform click, right? So our remove to do function is receiving an event object, and like I said, this object is incredibly useful. It has a property named target. The target property gets the entire HTML element in the JavaScript on which the click event is performed. Let me make it clear with the help of the example. Let's cancel out the target property. Right? Now add some to-dos in the list. Now open the cancel tab. And now I will make a click on the delete button. And here what we see in the cancel, the entire HTML element of delete button is returned by the target property. And this is what we actually need. Once we have this tag in JavaScript, we can perform remove operation. And now in the JavaScript, I will write something like this. Now this one even more interesting, the parent node. And it says we are not interested of the element we are performing click on. We are rather interested of its parent element. Now if you look our HTML, so li is the parent element of div, right? So you will perform click on the delete button, but the element we are getting in the JavaScript is actually the li tag. And this is exactly what we want. Let's put this variable in the cancel to see what will happen. Add some items. Now I will perform click on the delete button, and what I get is the li tag. Right, so we have a twisting logic in the code. Click is performed on the delete button, but the tag we get is the li tag. And now we just need to remove this li from the list, and our program is ready. And now our application is completed. Let's now check the application in the browser. Put some to-dos. And now delete them one by one. Yes, our application is working fine. And this is how you can develop a simple to-do application in JavaScript. And I hope you like this tutorial. I will see you around in some other tutorials, and thanks for watching.